Hi, welcome to the 12th House Podcast. I'm Michelle, your co-host and the head witch in charge here at Holisticism. Delighted to have you. Welcome back to the squirrels who have been here before, to our new squirrels. Hi, how's it going? The 12th House Podcast is a little corner of the internet where we bring together creativity, inspiration, intuition, spiritual shit, the metaphysical, the practical, tactical stuff that comes to running a business. It's really fun. You're going to like it, I think. So anyway, let's get into today's episode. Hi, Wallis.
Hi, Michelle.
So we're in, you know what? Big season of change.
A big season of change.
We are recording on New Moon in Cancer was yesterday. The nodes changed. We're in an Aries North node, Libra South node, which means changing the way that we do love and relationships, and also how we do business, how we go after our things.
What came up for you?
Aries energy. I don't know yet. I'm just one day into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it feels, you're leaving.
I know.
That's definitely changing the way that I do business.
Sad.
I know.
Heartbreak, tear.
I know.
Emotional.
I know.
I've been trying to avoid thinking about it.
It's so weird. And now it's like creeping up on us. It's next week. That's your last week.
That's insane.
I know.
That's bananas.
But it's exciting.
Very exciting. Big changes. I mean, this year for both of us has been huge changes.
Mm-hmm.
And we are actually talking about a theory today that I would say is quite apt for both of us.
Ooh.
I don't want to project, but you can let me know.
Okay, cool. What's the name of this podcast, Wallace?
This is the 12th House. Welcome to Friday Philosophy.
With me, Michelle, and
me, Wallis.
We're happy that you're here. We just hopped open a little beverage in an ode to our Good For You days.
Yes.
In an ode to our recording in person days, we're
the best way.
Mm-hmm, we're sitting in my back house, which also in a week won't be here anymore. We're moving.
You are moving. Wow.
Big changes.
It's interesting how big moves usually also coincide with big life changes. It's not like you're usually, I'm moving and everything is just,
everything
regular.
stays the same. Yeah. No, it doesn't. It usually
You have a baby.
Have a baby now.
You have a business that is arguably toddler's age. No, older.
Oh, girl.
When does
6
toddler?
years old.
Yeah, toddler ends at 5. Shows what I know.
I feel like
2 to 5.
Yeah, I feel like 2 to 4 is maybe toddler.
Okay, so you're
it's in first grade.
Yeah, going into first grade in September.
It's like it's hooked on phonics.
That's big.
Yeah,
it's learning how to type.
Oh my god. Yeah. Maybe even doing some, 3-digit math.
Oh, definitely.
Addition and subtraction.
Definitely. I mean, this business skipped a few grades.
Cool for her. Yeah, things are happening. But today, you brought some research to the table for Friday Philosophy. Is it sad? Is it depressing?
No, it's actually very positive.
Okay, cool.
It's uplifting.
Okay, because the name is could go either which way.
Yes. So the name of this theory that we're talking about today is post-traumatic growth. Not its more well-known cousin or sibling, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, we don't love that one.
No. We all kind of know largely what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we also know very much what post-traumatic growth is, but it's kind of interesting to look at it with a more, let's say, formal container, because you can look back at instances in your life where you're like, oh, that's exactly what that caused.
Yes. That's what I love about just frameworks and mental models is that it sort of like folds up a phenomenon where you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's totally a thing. And it helps make life predictable in a way that's comforting. Not like, well, this is obviously what comes next, but at least what I think is going to happen with post-traumatic growth based on the context clues. Like, okay, something good will come of this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, we love growth in the title of the theory.
That's a good sign.
Yes. It's on the up. Okay, so post-traumatic growth is a psychological theory developed by 2 psychologists, Richard Tedeschi, I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Sounds good to me.
And Lawrence Calhoun in the mid-1990s at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So they proposed this as a concept when noticing that some individuals report positive change and growth from their struggles with traumatic experiences despite usually a huge event of stress that could result in kind of negative, long-lasting traumatic effects. So, yeah, growth from trauma also possible.
Totally.
And it's not either or. And it sounds, kind of counterintuitive to a degree because we hear so much about PTSD.
Yeah.
But it also, as soon as you hear it, you're like, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
This is also one of those theories where I'm like, yes, psychology comes in, explains these things that we know intuitively or we know from maybe having a certain spiritual or religious background.
Mm-hmm.
And then psychology is like, well, we're going to use the scientific method.
Right.
So,
okay, cool.
It's okay.
One day we should also do scientism, which is basically like the belief in science above all other things, which I did not know that term until one of our podcast guests taught it to me. I was like, right, that totally makes sense. Like, that isn't the only way to think about things, but it's the most popular right now, I would say.
Yeah, because it also coincides with a movement towards rationalism and secularism. Mm-hmm. And it is the moral high ground of today is the scientific method.
It's in this house, we believe in science.
Yes. Yeah. The bumper sticker?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it could be problematic.
I know. Well, especially if it's too far in one direction, just like we say. We like to exist in the liminal.
In the nuance.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, sorry. I took us off track.
No. It's great. Okay. What they developed while studying post-traumatic growth was a 21 scale post-traumatic growth inventory. Huh. So there's a little checklist to measure positive outcomes reported by people who have experienced traumatic events. And it's designed to capture the degree to which survivors have changed in their lives as a result of the struggle and, the aftermath of the event. And this is something, again, we can look back on our lives or other people's lives and be like, that was a hard time. But of course, it's made us better, faster, stronger, as I like to say. So we're not going to go through all 21. I couldn't find a quiz for it right as when I was researching, but I'm going to link some resources because it's super interesting to look through and you can rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for these categories and see where you land when you're thinking of a specific experience. And these 5 categories are, number 1, new possibilities. So this measures the degree to which somebody sees new opportunities and new pathways that weren't available to them before the trauma. And I think that's so relatable in so many instances of how your perspective can just be so shifted after such a huge event that you can't unsee this new perspective.
Yeah. I'm thinking about so much stuff right now. Because I'm like, okay, in my mind, it's almost like there's 2 types of people. There's people who experience post-traumatic growth, which kind of I'm assuming happens eventually. It doesn't have to happen immediately after you go through a trauma, right? You can you can experience the trauma and be healing from it and then experience post-traumatic growth after that. Could take weeks, could take years, whatever. And then I imagine there's another type of person that doesn't, where their life just gets worse.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like it just means that you continue to live your life and you find new ways to do the things that you did before that maybe you don't have access to, or your life gets even better because you create new potential possibilities. And then I was thinking about how I want to hear maybe if you're open to sharing, where you think if you have some an experience to fall back on, not to bring up your trauma or my trauma. I was trying to think too of what would I consider a trauma of mine? Yeah.
I don't feel that I have necessarily all of the right psychological language around trauma. I know there's a lot of really impactful and different research on different types of trauma. So for the sake of this podcast and this theory, we're being pretty simplistic.
Yeah.
But from my own experience, I think this idea of new possibilities feels like it often comes a lot later.
Yeah.
And
yes,
to your point.
Thinking. Right.
So I'm thinking of an example. I think I've talked about this on one podcast, but I was thinking about the distorted frames of thinking episode we did recently and how the fallacy of fairness and the heaven's reward fallacy, I thought about those several days after because I still think I really struggle with them.
Really?
Yeah, just subconsciously.
Yeah, totally.
And something that I struggled with for a long time was, I've done everything that I thought was good and right and fair, but I feel that I am being treated unjustly in a given situation.
Yeah.
So therefore, it must be my fault. And then there's that whole internal locus of control. So it must be my fault. I must be actually doing something wrong.
I'm bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think for a while that would just keep me down and keep me small and keep me from exploring opportunities or going after things that I wanted versus having more resilience and not ruminating in things for a while and taking things so personally in a way. And a lot of these 5 categories in the scale really point to a resilience muscle of just what tools do I have to overcome this hard period. And sometimes you need to lean on like one more than the other. And sometimes those periods just take longer to overcome. But I do think moving to LA and this whole process of immigrating to the U.S. has been one of those experiences where I had to relinquish so much control and be like, actually, it's beyond my control. So much of it. So I might as well just live my life the way that I want to for the most part, because nothing in this realm of things is necessarily guaranteed.
I also think about like your tech job that you couldn't work at anymore because of immigration stuff. Yeah. And you could have sat in that and been like, this sucks, hate everything, life's so unfair. And like, you probably did feel that for a day or two and were sad and bummed about it. But then you just were like, okay, well, what if I get into film? Yeah. Like, I'll do something. What if I do the TikTok creator program? Yeah. Like, I don't know. Let's just like do some stuff, Let's see what happens. And that is true. Not everyone's like that. Like, so many people are not like that who are not down to just hit the ground running. And, I don't want to like minimize that experience. I feel like it was a really big experience for you. Like, you couldn't do the work that you came here to do. You couldn't be with your friends, like your entire community. And then that sucks.
You're totally right. And in hindsight, I can see that now. But at the time I was like, I just got to do stuff. Right. I worked at like a store in Los Feliz for a while because the guy was down to pay me under the table. And my parents were like, you don't really have to do that, do you? And I was like, yeah, I do. I need to just keep moving. Yes. I just needed to be active and doing something. But that wasn't necessarily like a proud moment for me because I was like, what am I doing here working at the store? But it got me to the next stage that I needed to. I also just needed to be busy in that moment. But I did a lot of different things, to your point. And after, working with you for all this time, I feel like I've gone to a graduate school in 5 different subjects. And I really feel that way. And I talk about this a lot, the experience of working here and working with you. And I would never trade that for the situation that everyone at that company is still in. Wow. Like, sure, they have some Facebook stock, but like,
I was going to say, you wouldn't trade it for the Facebook stock?
No. I wouldn't for so many reasons, but I really feel like so confident in that because I've grown so much as a person and I would have been kind of still in a similar loop over there. Wow. And that does put stuff into perspective because you're like, money is money. It comes, it goes. Yeah. But I would never trade what I've experienced, what I've learned, the friendships and relationships and work that I've done for that.
Makes me happy.
Yeah. I said this to somebody yesterday and they were like, absolutely. Like, think about where you would be and what you've learned and the new possibilities to the point of this, theory was almost forced on me. Right. But then as a result, I gained a resilience muscle of just being like, oh, well, like, try a bunch of different things, see what sticks.
Sometimes when resilience doesn't come from being brave, and like trying to be strong, it just comes from like continuing to exist.
So true.
And like just getting back up. Like, it's okay if it hurt your feelings or it sucks or it's hard or like, you don't have to be brave and strong. Yeah. You'll still build resilience. You don't have to be perfect about it or like put a veneer on top to like flex that muscle. You'll still build it even if you kind of like drag yourself through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think one of the things that you say so much about that is continuing to show up in your business or your creative projects, whatever it is. Like, that really is so much of the work.
Totally.
Not that you shouldn't quit. We believe in quitting.
Listen, we love quitting.
Also, there's an episode on that. I really think about that a lot. Yeah. Because there is something you get through that endurance and what new possibilities are revealed over time.
It's a growth mindset.
Yes.
And not everyone has that. And you have to learn it.
Okay. Number 2, relating to others. This part of the scale assesses a person's interpersonal relationships, such as feeling a greater sense of connection with others, a greater sense of compassion, or finding new people who can provide support. This, hits home on so many levels. Totally. What does it make you think of?
Well, it makes me think of something, again, going to feel tangential. But when I really started dating after my first big breakup, I dated someone very briefly from my high school and went out for like a couple weeks or something. And I felt like I really couldn't relate to him because I'd gone through some pretty like big stuff and he hadn't. And I felt like he didn't have empathy and like compassion for other people because he'd just been kind of coddled up until that point in his life. And I remember asking him like, so what's like the biggest, hardest thing that you've gone through? Yeah. And he was like, well, he got really somber. He's like, well, there was one semester where I was pulling C's.
I love this for him. That's your biggest concern.
Yeah. And he's like, it's tough. It's really tough. My parents said they weren't going to pay for my, they weren't going to give me my allowance every month anymore. And I eventually got those grades up, was able to be in the frat still. And I was like, okay, I gotta go. Yeah,
I'm out of here.
Not to that was his hardest thing. That's okay. That's his hardest thing. Yeah. But like when you do go through tough stuff, it gives you just gives you empathy for other people, for the human condition,
100%. I think before I had gone through, I had periods of depression, but before I'd gone through a consistent low for a while, I think I did struggle to relate to people with.
Cheer up!
Yeah, just get over it. With depression. Yeah. I think you see that with a lot of people who, and we all have these blind spots where it's hard to relate beyond your own experience until you go through it. And I think that combined with also letting go of people in your life where you're like, you know what? This isn't a healthy relationship for me and it's hard to let go of this. But I'm going to choose to support myself in not having these types of relationships anymore. I think that also comes with it, like certain self-respect too.
Yeah, that reminds me of the feeling when you've survived something. Like, I've gone through this much. Like, am I really going to let this person bring my life down or like disrespect me? Like, I've worked really hard to get to this place where I can be happy. Totally. Like, why would I let someone take that away from me in my life,
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one.
All right.
Number 3. Personal strength. This scale measures the extent to which the person feels stronger or more capable after their experience of the trauma. And I think this is kind of a simplistic sentence or a way that they've described it, but it makes me think of personal efficacy and your belief in yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I think can be huge when you go through tough changes, like certain areas of your self-efficacy, I think, grow. Because you're like, wait, yeah, I did do that. I trust myself to figure this out.
Yeah. It reminds me, a lot of people run marathons or do endurance races to sort of prove to themselves that they can. Like, if I can run for 4 hours, I could do a lot. I can sit through this boring meeting. Or, if I can survive this thing, if I can give birth, I can definitely stub my toe or withstand 15 minutes of meditation. Those are simple, silly things, but I think that's a good one.
Do you think that correlates though? Like I was just thinking about the faultiness in some of that thought because I've definitely done that where I'm like, I'm going to do this physical activity or put myself in this situation because if I can get through it, then I'm tough.
I think it's both. I mean, I think there's like probably an unconscious perspective of it. Like, of course the conscious is like, if I can run whatever. If I can run for 3 hours, I'm a strong person. I'm a physically strong person. Right. But I also just think that there's, like mental fortitude there to push through everything that, all your doubts. Yeah. Because like naturally you have doubts. Yeah. And it wouldn't be a challenge if you were like, well, obviously I can do that thing.
Exactly.
I feel like a lot of what I did in my 20s was just testing myself. It's like testing my limits. Like, what am I capable of? And that built self-confidence in me. also like seeing how incompetent so many other people are. Like putting myself in those situations was really valuable, especially like around people I was really intimidated by. And then saying like, oh wait, they're a person. They make mistakes. They're actually like not as cool as I thought they were. All right, I can trust myself more than I thought, or like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's true. It's like dipping your toe in different pools to be like, what's going on over here? I don't know. I think I definitely have the habit of being like, everyone else in the room is smarter than me no matter what.
Yeah.
And then you get into certain rooms and you're like, oh, okay. There's just like some luck involved here.
Totally. More often than not, there's luck involved. And like, they might know more about the stock market than you, but do they know more about emotional intelligence?
Perhaps not.
Perhaps not. Yeah.
Also, what you were saying about testing your own limits was making me think about something you said the other day about consistency being part of what builds our identity.
Yeah.
Consistency in any area of our life can contribute to our identity, good or bad.
Yeah. I think also just like there's something about withstanding the pressure of anxiety. Like, okay, you're putting yourself in a new situation to like be at a new school, to meet new people, to learn things you've never learned before that you're like, I don't even know what's going to come next. That's a lot of anxiety to put yourself in. Yeah. And once you get through it, you'll be like, okay, I can go to that dinner party where I don't know anyone because like I just introduced myself to a group of 25 people I'm going to hang out with for the next 2 years. I know what I'm getting myself into, but also not really.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. I'm going to be able to do it.
Totally. I'm glad you're so excited. I'm like, oh my God, right. I'm doing that. Shit. I signed myself up.
You did it. But you like, you did it because you're interested and because like, it's a good challenge for you. You need to be challenged.
It is.
But that's a growth mindset person. Like a person with a growth mindset finds ways to challenge themselves.
And do you feel it's something that people can strengthen, or do you think there's a little bit of people have it or they don't have it?
No, I think you can totally. I think it's just a perspective shift where you can ask yourself like, okay, do I have a growth mindset here, or am I like complacent, or am I actually the opposite? I'm like pulling back from growth, recessing from growth.
Right.
Perhaps. I don't know.
In a winter period.
Which is also okay, right? Like you don't have to have a growth mindset around everything that you do.
No.
I feel like one of my like traumas that I've talked about is having epilepsy and like having seizures, and it was so embarrassing and like scary to have seizures.
I can only imagine.
Especially like when you're 17 through like 25, right? So embarrassing. And I remember thinking, if I can deal with this, like I've done way scarier shit than move to New York City. Like I've done way scarier stuff than perform in front of a bunch of people I don't know. Like I've sat through whatever, like a really scary medical situation and like just existed in not knowing what's going to happen to me. And if I can make it through that, I'll be fine. This is going to be just fine, you know?
Yeah, and that's a perspective shift that takes a lot of conscientiousness and presence. And I also feel like embodiment, like the way that you say that, that's like an embodied experience that you're having because you've tested that muscle a few times.
Yeah.
Also, what it takes to put yourself out there, start a business, speak your truth, share your voice. That's part of that.
True.
That's arguably the scariest stuff, I think.
I mean, because it's putting you up to potentially be torn down by other people or like rejected by other people.
Yeah.
And that is, for some of us, our biggest fear.
Oh, yeah.
I'm raising my hand.
Same. Especially in this economy. Number 4, spiritual change. Of course.
Yeah.
This scale assesses the change in one's spiritual beliefs or the importance of spirituality in a person's life post a specific event. I think this is really something maybe that you hear about most often when you think about post-traumatic growth. Even if we don't call it that, you hear about these huge cataclysmic or traumatic events and then people becoming more spiritual or religious.
Totally.
I feel like that's a story that feels not popular, but common, I guess. Not in a bad way.
Yeah, you go through something intense. It's kind of like a punchline to a joke, right?
Yeah.
Like I had my near-death experience, or I went through my divorce, or whatever, and I found God. Or I, lost my job and then went on a yoga teacher retreat, and now I'm living in Bali with my acro yoga boyfriend. Like, you've found a different level of spirituality. I also think that trauma, little t, big T, I guess, when we realize that it's happened to us or experience it, it kicks off that just seeking muscle of like, why? To what end? Like, what is this all about? Like, why am I enduring this? Why did I have to go through this? Like the question you asked, like, why me? What's the point of this? Like, what isn't the lesson that I'm here to learn? And if you're naturally a seeker, I think that that's going to take you down the route of like deepening your own spirituality. And I guess like coming up with your spiritual operating system.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how at different points in your life, you need new operating systems.
Absolutely. I got to install new programs. You need to upgrade and update.
I really like that this is on here. I don't know the backgrounds of these psychologists, but I could easily see something like spirituality not being included here.
Yeah.
It's making me think of a person's period being part of their vital signs. It's like, finally.
Hey, yeah. That's a good point.
This feels, I'm just like, yes, good job. It should be there. And I don't know, maybe it's also the one that is the most cliche to talk about, and then the most private.
Spirituality.
Yeah, I think more people don't talk about it than do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had this experience. I definitely have had people be like, oh, well, I started like dabbling in so-and-so, and they come and tell me, I'm like, oh, okay.
Dude, that was like why I started Philosophies.
Exactly.
Because people would like corner me in the office kitchen and be like, so what do you know about this?
Yeah, I'm saying this to the person who like everyone is coming to.
I mean, two things I'm reminded of. I'm like, oh, wait, when I just like bring this stuff up at whatever, when I'm out, not everyone believes in it. And like people might be like, oh, she's crazy. Or like, I can't believe she believes in that. Not everyone just thinks the same way that we think.
No.
But it's also so cool when people begin to just kind of go outside of their perspective, or I don't know how they've envisioned things. I also wonder with the spirituality, because for so many people, trauma is like a parent dying or a spouse or partner, like death involves death, right?
Yeah.
And that really
opens things up.
Yeah, that leads us to spirituality and like what's on the other side. The unknown.
Yeah, it feels like this crack in the concrete or in the matrix or whatever.
Yeah, and it's an unanswerable question, right? Like science can only answer so many questions for us. And if we go to, well, why did this happen?
Yeah.
Like, why am I experiencing this? There's no like cut and dry answer that's satisfactory. Absolutely. Other than like, it just happened to you. That's not like a satisfying answer. We always want to know like the deeper meaning, or like what ripple in the universe or in the matrix this generates or creates, that it was for something. Like we want to know that the pain that we went through was for something.
I think that's part of the growth narrative as well, because otherwise what is the point?
Totally. Like we're really depressing.
Yeah. Just because.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can't take that for an answer as social creatures.
I shan't.
Yeah. Okay. The last category is, I love this, appreciation of life. This measures the change in a person's ability to appreciate life or a shift in their life priorities and perspectives.
No, I think that, like, period.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. Appreciate your life. You got it. You're welcome.
Gratitude, baby.
Yeah. I mean, Ethan, obviously, I can't really speak for him, but I know that mofo really appreciates his life now. I think he did before. He was a pretty positive person, but now like every moment we get is just like, it's bonus. It's bonus time.
It is. When you think about the odds of even being born.
Oh my God, it's crazy. How are we born? And then like born with all of our parts and we're cool and we survive into adulthood. And just like that we're born in the places that we're born. Like we hit the lottery just being born where we were born.
100%.
It's crazy.
Everything is extra credit at this point. So that's kind of their model for post-traumatic growth. Do you think they're missing anything? I mean, this is a brief overview.
No, I think it's pretty like encompassing, actually.
Yeah.
Even though it's simple, it's only 5. I mean, there's 21 questions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that all that makes sense.
I like that it's not about bouncing back. It's about leaning into forward momentum and evolution.
Yeah, because you're never going to go back to the person that you were before trauma.
Yeah.
And I think that's really healthy because that's, I don't know, I'll speak for me. I wanted to just go back to how it was before. Or like, you ever have one of those things that happens to you where you're like, I wish I could just run back time.
Yeah,
I wish I could
unsee something almost.
Yes, I wish I could rewind to yesterday and do this over again. And you can't.
No.
Or like not experience this, like move in another direction. So I think that that's cool that it's like, yeah, just moving on, moving forward. And I think this would be really helpful for right after you experience something traumatic to just see kind of like the stages of grief.
Yeah.
Even though that's kind of been debunked. Like, okay, here's eventually what's going to happen next. And like, nothing's forever. Nothing lasts forever. The good stuff and the bad stuff. So here you go. Here's what comes next.
Just 5 little steps.
Just 5 little steps.
Just one at a time.
Easy peasy.
What is the sun, moon, and rising of post-traumatic growth?
Archetypes. Yeah. I think the sun would be seeker. The moon would be the student, and the rising would be the warrior.
Oh, warrior. Love that.
Yeah, just pulled that out.
Resilience, baby.
Is this a morning glory or night flower?
I think a morning glory kind of vibe.
I think so. They're get out of bed, eat your Wheaties. Yeah. Are they a coffee or a matcha?
I was actually going to say almost like an herbal. So that's neither.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're just like, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Whatever you got.
Yeah.
You got regular milk? I'll take it.
Yeah. Black? That's cool too.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I like that.
Okay, what's the one weird thing about post-traumatic growth?
I think when it has traumatic in the title, it's hard to not hear that.
It really is. Hard to move past it.
Yeah. And I think what's weird about this is that it's trying to say, hey, but you might also have PTSD at the same time. So
you're okay, but you're not okay.
Yeah. So don't move too quickly beyond that trauma. Like, deal with it.
Tread lightly, bestie.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. That is kind of like conflicting messages.
That's how it feels a little.
Yeah.
They're clear in talking about it that they're like, but you might also have PTSD. Which honestly I respect. Both can be true.
You know what? It's not satisfactory, but both can be true. On the V to P scale, where does this lie? Is it more Virgo? Is it more Pisces?
I think it's more Pisces. It's more feeling.
Okay.
But it's not quite Pisces. I want to say Cancer.
Oh,
what do you think?
Yeah. Empath energy.
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of is Capricorn for me, which is more on the Virgo side, in my opinion.
Tell me more. I think you are probably correct.
No, listen, this is subjective. I think that like something about Capricorn is like, sometimes things suck and we just have to like do them.
So true.
And like and
part
it's going to be okay. It's just, you got to show up. Like Capricorn is very much giving me that vibe where it's like, you just got to.
You're not going to like everything.
Yep. And like measured, not like so extreme, like so extremely emotional or like whatever, or so extremely like robotic, which
That's
I feel
true.
like, Virgo can be sometimes.
It can be a little unfeeling.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think Capricorn people sleep on. I love a Capricorn.
I feel that I've been sleeping on Capricorn.
They're great.
Taking some notes.
Your astrology neighbor, your zodiac sign neighbor, is an Aquarius.
It's true. Yeah. Okay. Well, what do you think of the PTG? Are you going to think about this?
Love. Yeah, I think it's cool. I think any sort of like archetypal path or journey that one goes on that one can follow is useful. Now I'm thinking about this as like, okay, what would I call the archetypes like at each stage of this journey? What about you?
I love that it starts with new possibilities as the first category, and the last category is appreciation of life. Yeah. Feels a little zen.
Very, yeah.
Ever changing, but notice the small things, and there's no secret.
I think that's what we've learned over how many episodes that we've done.
I know.
2.5 years worth of episodes. There's no one secret. There's no one key. But that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know what I picture when I think of like how I describe this podcast and also like the philosophies and meaning making systems?
Mm-hmm.
I picture a gigantic closet of glasses.
Ooh,
You've got so many glasses, you guys. You have so many different types of glasses, different lenses. Sometimes they're colored. Sometimes they're bifocal. Sometimes, they're not. Sometimes there's nothing in there. Sometimes they're just blue blockers. Whatever. But there are all these different ways of seeing the world. And when you put on these lenses, it's like, okay, wait, now I see the world this way. And like, I'm still me. It's not like totally different, but it's just, a framework through which to understand and see the world.
A little perspective, POV shift, paradigm shift.
Exactly.
I love that image.
So I'd wear these sunglasses.
Yeah. I was going to say, what kind of glasses do you think these are?
I think they're just some very smart,
respectable,
UVA, UVB protected sunglasses.
Yeah, they're not just blue light blockers.
Nope. They're not Maui gems.
No. Oh my God. Good stuff. Well, guys, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you liked this episode, we have like a ton of episodes.
We have so many more.
This is your first time listening. Hey, you came in on a little bit of a weird one, but welcome. Hope that you liked this. And if you are old and have listened to a lot of episodes, can I interest you in the 12th House Plus? It's our premium channel, which is honestly inside this feed, where you just get one extra episode, sometimes more every month.
Sometimes more.
Yeah, for $5. And we create typically every month an audio course that you can't find anywhere else. It's a really accessible way to get some of the juicier stuff that we teach and do.
What a steal, honestly.
Truly a steal. And it also helps us make this podcast and not have sponsors.
And you can feel good about paying your creators.
Yeah, exactly.
Contributing.
It's an opportunity to do a money spell, actually.
Yeah. Thanks in advance.
Yeah, thanks in advance. And also, you can thank us.
Yeah. We'll pay for it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you
on Tuesday. Okay. Bye.
Bye. The 12th House is produced by yours truly, Wallis Blanchard. Our theme music is made by Nathan McKay, and our wonderful editing is done by Softer Sound Studios, who you can find more information about in our show notes.